Oh, what's up, guys? This is gonna be another one of the thing I talked about in the last video, another episode of that. It's gonna be a little different this time. First, I have to say sorry if the camera looks different. I dropped my phone, so the front-facing camera has a weird-looking glare in it, so I'm using, like, the back camera for the first time. Maybe it's better, maybe it's worse. I don't know. But this is what it's gonna be, for now at least, and I do have music playing again. It might just be, you might not even be able to hear it, you might be able to hear it too much. I put it on the quiet side because I felt like you not being able to hear it would be better than hearing it more than me, because, like, the video isn't about the music, it's about the stuff I'm gonna say. So, yes, this one is going to be a little different because, if you couldn't tell by the title, this is about introductions and how I met all of, like, the people that I'm close to today and the people I have been close with. And so I'm gonna say names in this. I have a list of names on here. If me saying names becomes a problem, then I can make the video private. I'm not really that opposed to that. Anyway, yeah, I woke up feeling really nostalgic today for whatever reason. I'm not entirely sure, but I think, like, it getting warm out here has something to do with that, because I first moved into this house about this time, or a little before this. I moved into this house mid-March of my 8th grade year. So I spent a lot of summers here, and it's just kind of like a feeling, like, I guess a vibe, you could say, that I've gotten, and I'm starting to feel that again, so I'm feeling nostalgic again. So yeah, the only good way to explain what I'm going to be doing is just start with the first name, and I'm going to do Dylan first. I tried to do this in the order that I remember meeting people or interacting with people for the first time, and granted, I don't remember the first moment of all of these people interacting with me. I'll do, like, my bigger, earlier memories, and you'll see. So yeah, first up, Dylan. Dylan was the first person I met from the group that we had run with in high school and in middle school. I met him technically 2 years before middle school. I had just turned 10, and he was about to turn 11. We were on a summer swim team together, and he was one of the first two people I met on that team. He was one of the first friends I made on that team. So we swam together for what ended up being 2 or 3 years. And during those 2 to 3 years, I moved from where I was before to the school district I'm in now for the last half of my 5th grade year, so I could maybe make friends in that elementary school going into middle school, because my parents figured middle school is hard enough socially. It would be even worse if you have no friends, so go make some. And luckily, when I found out Dylan was going to that same middle school, he's like, oh yeah, I have a couple people I can introduce you to. So yeah, that was nice. I don't necessarily remember my first time of talking to Dylan, but the earliest exact memory I have of Dylan is we were at a swim meet, and we were in the same heat. We were racing against each other for a certain event. We were doing backstroke. And I was, like, super high on myself with backstroke. I was, like, building myself up, and a bunch of my friends would be like, oh, you're going to be our backstroker for this age group. You're so good in practice, you're going to be great. And Dylan was nowhere near a backstroker. He was good at a completely different stroke, so I was like, oh, I'm going to take this race easy. I'm going to be the guy, you know, I'm going to get so many people to, like, say good job, and, like, I was so cocky as a 10-year-old. And Dylan fucking smokes me to the point where by the time I touch the wall, I look over and he's already on the wall with his goggles on his head, and his face is already fucking dry. And he just looks over me and does this. He goes, raises his eyebrows a bunch super fast, and I just look at this dude and go, fuck this guy. I don't want to meet his friends in middle school. Fuck this guy, dude. I was really upset at that for, like, a day or two. But clearly it worked out. You know, we were friends for a long time after that. But that's my earliest, very clear memory of Dylan that I have. And it turns out that the two people that he eventually would introduce me to would end up being Vince and Eli, or at least those are the people he was talking about to begin with, right? And I'll start with Eli because I have his name written down next. I don't remember the first time I met Eli. I'm sure it was the first or second day of school because we had a class together in 6th grade. But for some reason I don't remember. The earliest vivid memory I have of Eli, and I've told him this, is on Halloween in 6th grade. We used to stand around in this little 6th grade hallway. I don't know if you can call it a hallway. It was an outdoor school. It was like a 6th grade little corridor where all of the classrooms in this little area were just for 6th graders at the time. And so we used to hang out in there before school. So it was me and Dylan, and I think Vince was there already. We were just hanging out, and then Eli comes around the corner walking in this giant fucking Batman costume with like giant fake muscles around his arms and stuff. And I don't know why, but I looked over at him and I kind of laughed. It was really funny for some reason. That's the earliest clear memory I have of Eli, is him walking up in a Batman costume and not saying anything. For whatever reason, I don't remember Eli talking until like 7th grade. Obviously, I know that's not true. I know he was able to speak, and I know I talked to him in 6th grade. I just, for whatever reason, have no memories of it. And then Vince, I do remember Vince a little more clearly in 6th grade. We ate lunch together. That's pretty much my main thing. And then we had the same class that Eli and I had together. Dylan was also in that class, so the 4 of us were in that class at the end of the day, too. But yeah, I remember me, Dylan, Eli, and Vince would eat lunch together at this little like picnic table thing, and some other friends that they had from elementary school would come over. Guys like John Piero, Arian was there at least one time. He was there for a while, I think. I don't exactly remember where that connection was. I think Arian helped John Piero show Eli around his school when he got here because he moved from another country. I don't exactly remember the Arian connection, but I remember meeting him in 6th grade and we talked about DC comic books for a while. And he talked about how he was making his own DC comic storyline with John Piero, and I thought that was really cool. So that was super early on in 6th grade, like within the first week or two that happened. And Vince would eat lunch with us because he was friends with Dylan in elementary school. And another kind of funnier memory I have of Vince is we were sitting together in the class we had together. It was 2 periods. One was science and one was history. And we were taking a test one time. We were sitting next to each other. And Vince, if you don't already know, he was the school smarts guy. He was the dude that got A's on every test and on in every report card, right? This dude was a schoolmaster, okay? So we were sitting next to each other, and now I got really good grades, especially in middle school, right? I was a really good student, but I acted really fucking stupid, and I still do. So Vince and I were sitting next to each other for this test, and I don't know what was going through my mind, but I decided that this was a good time to continue our conversation from lunch. So I started whispering to Vince like, hey, what were you eating for lunch again? You remember that game we were talking about? We used to play this virtual card game called Monster Warlord. I was like, hey, I bet my best monster is better than yours. What's your best again? Oh, mine's better than that. And I just kept whispering to him about it. And he clearly did not want to talk at the moment because we were taking a test, understandably so. So he just kept like kind of glancing over like, yeah, shh. To eventually to the point where the teacher like sits up out of his chair and goes, Vince, hush. He didn't say my name, but he said Vince's name. And Vince got like a little embarrassed, as any 11-year-old would when a teacher calls you out in the middle of a test. So, yeah, Vince, I got on Vince's nerves a good bit during class because our mindsets for how we approach school were, and to this day, are still quite different. Well, they're more similar now, but especially back then, I did not care nearly as much as he did, and I didn't try to hide that much at all. And it was really funny to me that for some reason, he said my name after because I started laughing so hard that I became an interruption for laughing at the fact that he said Vince's name and not mine, that I was not in any trouble at all. But yeah, I don't know why that sticks out in my head so much, but yeah, Vince, we met in 6th grade. There were other things down the line. Another memory that's really key of Vince, I'm gonna save for the video I'll make about 8th grade because that's a really funny story. I don't want to shove too much into one video, but with those two down, who's the next name on my list? Next one is Alex, but I'm gonna save him for later because I'm gonna try and go in like a different order. Let's see. From Vince and Eli, like I said, Arian was hanging out with us at lunch, but there was one other person who they kind of brought into our initial group, and that was Miko. Miko, from what I know, or from what I can tell, Eli brought Miko in. I don't remember exactly how. I think like they saw each other get lost or something. And I don't know how it happened, but one way or another, Miko ended up eating lunch with us. And the one thing I remember about Miko initially is that he tried to cheat at every single mobile game he could. And this stayed true until high school, right? We made a Clash of Clans clan Miko already had an existing Clash of Clans clan, and we all joined it and made it our own. And that was my first memory of Miko. I know we talked before this, again, this is my first vivid memory, is that Miko tried to get me to join his Clash of Clans clan. And I don't know why I remember this interaction so specifically, but I was really into Assassin's Creed Black Flag at the time, the pirate one, and Miko had also played that game. So, when, instead of just telling me the clan name, he said, "Oh, you know it, it's from the game, you know it." And I thought, Miko, if you're talking about Black Flag, there's fucking thousands of names in that game. I'm not gonna guess this. And then a week later, he just told me it was called Manowar, and then I joined. But yeah, also, I remember Miko, he didn't cuss. I don't think he cussed ever. Maybe he did, he went through like a little spell where he did in middle school. But yeah, there was a time where he just didn't, and I don't think he does now either. Let's see, that was the main group at lunch for a while, because I was talking to someone else who's on this list until 2:30 in the morning the other day. And he reminded me that there were what our friend group is now and what it has been for a while was initially two different groups, right? There was the group that sat at the picnic table, which is the one I just listed out, and then there was the one who sat at this little cement square around a tree. We'll get to that later. So I want to cover everyone who was at the picnic tables first, and then I want to cover those other ones, the people who were at the cement tree, and then we'll see how it goes. The last person who I have not mentioned at the picnic tables yet was Noah, and Noah I actually met in 5th grade when I moved to the school district that I finished out my high school in. Noah was the only one that would talk to me for more than a minute or two. So I appreciated that, obviously. I was fucking hanging out with 4th graders before I talked to Noah, and Noah was an interesting case because his main hobby in 5th grade consisted of annoying this other kid to the point where he would scream and run away. And I thought that was hilarious, you know, as a 9, 10, maybe 11-year-old at the time. I fucking loved that, like, with all my heart. I was like, oh, this is my people. And the one instance where he had a friend named Cameron, who they had known well before I moved there, right? And this one moment that we have talked about over and over, because it was so fucking hilarious. Noah used to bring Top Ramen for lunch, or for snack time, or whatever the hell, at recess. But it wasn't in like a thermos or anything. He just brought like it in the packet, and he just opened it up and ate it like a brick, and he poured the seasoning on top. One day, Cameron came up to us, and we were messing around by a fence. Noah was eating his Top Ramen brick as usual, and Cameron said, "Hey Noah, they have grilled cheese in the cafeteria today." Grilled cheese was Noah's favorite, right? And he had like the lunch card, so he didn't have to like go get money from somewhere. He could just go get it. So Cameron says, "Hey Noah, there's grilled cheese in the cafeteria." Noah gets really, really excited to the point where he smashes his brick of Top Ramen on the concrete, and it shatters and goes everywhere. And he runs off to the cafeteria, and when he gets to the cafeteria, Cameron turns to me and says, "There's no grilled cheese. I just wanted to see what he would do." And lo and behold, a couple minutes later, Noah comes back out with a very, very angry look on his face and just says, "There was no fucking grilled cheese, Cameron." And I think that was the first time I heard Noah cuss. And in 5th grade, you know, it's a big deal. So I fucking lost it. And to this day, when I replay that memory in my head, it's one of the funniest things I've ever experienced. Just the whole sequence of him smashing it on the ground because he's so excited to get the grilled cheese and running away. Noah doesn't fucking run ever. And this dude sprinted to the cafeteria after smashing his own lunch for the promise that there would be grilled cheese. And then there wasn't any, and he was fucking livid. Another weird memory that sticks out is we had this day where the 5th graders got to go to the park that was right next to the school and play on that play structure. And at the end of that day, it was like recess all day essentially, right? But we still, like, there was an hour where we couldn't go to the park, but we could still play on our own play structure and our own field. And Noah decided he got bored, so he just walked into the middle of the school field, sat down, and I was following like a little behind him. He just sat down on the grass and yelled, "Fuck!" And that's it. I don't know why that sticks out in my head so well, but that's one of the funniest things I've ever been a part of again. You know, just a lot of weird shit that Noah said in 5th grade was really funny to me. And because I knew Dylan and now Dylan's other friends, Noah came with me to the picnic tables, and that's kind of that picnic table group. One other person I met who eventually became part of the the tree group was someone named Ben. I've talked about Ben at least once or twice on here. Ben and I also met in 5th grade. It was that weird stage of knowing someone, but you've never like talked to them really. Like, we knew each other's names, we knew who each other were, but we didn't actively talk. I don't know if we ever spoke to each other outside of this moment I'm about to tell. So, I want to say this was the first day of 6th grade. Lunchtime, we had English together. We had reading and writing, which reading was 4th period, writing was 5th period, and we had lunch in between 4th and 5th period. So, we got to go out to lunch together, and there was another guy in that class whose name was Dre. We're gonna mention him quite a bit in this series, but this is my first memory of Dre and Ben, because this was the first day of 6th grade. At lunch, we were walking out of the 6th grade corridor, and as we go around towards the lunch tables, there's a group of girls sitting right there. And this is only 6th graders at lunch, and Dre peeks around the corner and turns to me, having never spoken to me in the half hour that we have known each other up to this point. He says, Joey, shh. We have to spy on the girls. And I look at him like, huh? We don't know them? And I thought to myself, like, they told me that middle school was different from elementary school. This is the exact fucking same. People told me that in 4th grade all the time. We'd go on spy missions and follow the girls around. And that's what he was doing. To the point where after he got caught, he would, like, fucking crouch down on the ground like this and, like, pretend to army crawl away. It was really weird. But as he's doing this, I'm standing behind him watching, not interacting with him or the girls he's doing this to. I'm just kind of there. And then Ben walks by, and it clearly catches Ben's eye, as it should, because it's a person on the ground. Ben kind of walks by and like side-eyes to the ground, and I look up at him and decide, you know what? Maybe if I talk to Ben, I can walk away from this and not be as awkward. So I just look at Ben and go, "Hey Ben, what's going on?" And he says, "I don't know." And then I just followed him as he walked away, and I don't know where we went. I don't remember what we did, but I'm pretty sure that's the first time we ever spoke to each other. And eventually, he would go join the tree group, I'm pretty sure. Maybe he ate at the picnic tables a few times, but he was at the tree group for most of middle school. So that's those two. Now let's get to the tree group. Now let's get to Alex, as I said before. Alex, I do need to talk to Alex about this, and he watched my other video, so there's a chance he's going to watch this one, so if you made it this far to your name, good job, buddy, because I'm sure this video has been weird so far. But for a long time, I, for whatever reason, didn't think Alex and I met until 7th grade. But I knew that wasn't true because we started having advisory together in 7th grade, and we sat next to each other in advisory on day 1. I don't think we would have done that if we didn't know each other, right? Like, we had to have met in 6th grade somehow, and then it clicked. Holy shit, he was one of the people who played tag with us at lunch. Then that whole memory ball unwound, and in case you don't understand what I just said, we used to play tag on the big baseball field at lunch, and I don't know if Alex was part of the tree group that we knew some people in, like Ben. Ben was honestly probably the eventual bridge between... Ben, Arian, and Jean-Pierre were more than likely the bridge between the picnic group and the tree group. So, maybe Alex was a part of the tree group before this, but we started playing tag pretty early, like within the first month or two. So this Alex was within our ranks by September. Let's put that on it. Everyone who I'm about to say was in our ranks by September. Everyone I just said and everyone I'm about to say in this short little bit. We started playing tag in the baseball fields, and I remember that this has to be my first memory of Alex because I got his name wrong. I don't know if he remembers this. I kind of hope he does because looking back, it's kind of fucking funny. So we're playing tag, right? This is probably my first day of knowing Alex because I remember him seeming a little unfamiliar. But I knew that maybe this was the second day because I knew that he had a sister. I knew he had a sister that went to our school. I knew he had a sister that I saw him with on the first or second day of school. So, and his sister had a name, obviously, and for whatever reason, my brain decided to switch their names in my head. So when we're playing tag, Alex gets tagged, and he is now it. And I remember someone asking me, hey, who's it? And as Alex is kind of running towards us, I point at him and go, it's Sam. And I remember him stopping and going, no, I'm it. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I said. And he turns a little more confused, like, did you call me Sam? And I just kind of awkwardly stopped and go, no. And then I ran away. So, I don't know if he remembers that, but I'm pretty sure that's my earliest memory of Alex, or at least the earliest vivid memory. And, let's see, who else played? Pretty much everyone I said before this, plus Alex, played tag with us. So that was a good group we had, and I'm pretty sure that's how a lot of bonds formed. Now, who's next on? Actually, one more I do want to say is Jeremy. Now, I'm not entirely sure how the Jeremy timeline played out. Maybe he can, if he watches this part, he can provide more. Obviously, he knows more than I do about his own fucking life, so I don't know why I phrased it like that. But I'm actually really glad that I talked to Alex about this a while ago. He said he and Jeremy met during Outdoor Ed. Outdoor Ed was this big camping trip that the 6th graders could sign up to go, and it was like an outdoor science class for 4 days or some shit like that. It took up a whole school week, I remember that. So it was like 4 days, and we got back halfway through Friday or something like that. And Alex told me that he met Jeremy at Outdoor Ed. So I got to thinking, like, well, if Alex was in our ranks by September, Outdoor Ed was in, I want to say May. At the very least, it was in March. I know for a fact it was in that last quarter of 6th grade. I do want to say it was in May, which would have been like last minute because we ended in like the first couple days of June. So, if he said that he didn't meet Jeremy until Outdoor Ed, that implies that, you know, Jeremy was not with the tree group when I thought he was with the tree group. Because obviously Alex was with the tree group for a while, and I don't think he would have said I didn't meet him until then if they had been hanging out together for a while and just didn't talk. But my personal first memories of Jeremy was, I remember him hanging around during 7th grade when we eventually all moved to the tree. But Jeremy and I didn't really get close until 8th grade, which we had 6 out of our 7 classes together. And in 5 out of those 6 classes, we sat next to each other for the whole year. So we obviously got really close during that. We found out we had a lot more in common than we thought we did. At that time, our sense of humor and our comedic style was pretty much fucking the same. So we used to mess with people all the time, and we thought it was hilarious. It was like we were the peak of comedy. Everything we did, we would not be able to contain ourselves from laughing because we were so fucking hilarious. That's what we thought. That was our whole mindset going into that year. And there are, again, several memories with Jeremy that I'm not going to put in this video. I'm going to put in the 8th grade video because that video is a heavy hitter if I include those stories. But I'll put one in here. One in particular. Jeremy and I decided to have a pencil war in which we would just break each other's pencils. Like, we wouldn't steal them, we wouldn't take the lead out of them, we would just break them. We were just fucking destructive. We weren't like stealing because we were out of lead. We weren't using it for a better purpose. We were straight up just vandalizing each other and breaking each other's pencils. And this poor dude named George, who, he was one of the popular guys in middle school, right? We weren't necessarily, but we were a lot more up there than we think when I think about it. We were always considered ourselves more of like the nerdy group, more of like we were tight-knit within ourselves, but we weren't well known around. The more I think about it, like, people knew who we were, and it was because of shit like this. So this dude named George is next to us, and I got close to George a little off the bat because I was into sports big, and so was he, so we kind of like talked about that a lot. And then Jeremy got moved to our table again, and the pencil war resumed very quickly. Now, Jeremy was not technically sitting next to me, he was sitting diagonal from me. There was an empty desk to my right, Jeremy was in front of that desk, and George was in front of me. So we would be reaching over George's desk half the time to take each other's pencils and then break them. And I don't remember who did this, but one of us thought that the pencil on the edge of George's desk was the other one's pencil. So like hypothetically, I thought that the pencil on George's desk was Jeremy's pencil, so I took it and broke it. Now, it might have been the other way around. Jeremy might have done it. I don't remember who did this. I don't remember who fired the first shot into George's territory, but I do remember that from that point on, he was a rather unwilling participant in the pencil war, to the point where he only did it to protect himself and his own pencils. And it got so bad one day that we were using the desks to break the pencils because one of us had those like hard plastic pencils that are super fucking hard to break, especially if we're like 13. So we would put the pencils under the leg of the desk and snap it up. And we started using George's desk for it instead of our own for, again, no reason at all. We just decided to get him more involved. To the point where the teacher looks up, and this was like one of the coolest teachers we had in middle school, and she was like, "George, what are you doing with your desk?" And he's like, "This is not me, I don't know what's going on." He like tried to rat us out, but like tried not to at the same time. He was like, "I'm not involved in this, I don't want to be a part of this, I don't know what's going on, but I'm not doing anything." And then, because the teacher knew that Jeremy and I would do these dumb little like jokes to each other, she was like, "Oh, it's those two? Whatever." A lot of shit like that happened in this class. I'll get to the rest of it in the 8th grade video, which hopefully will come out this weekend actually. But yeah, those are some of my early memories with Jeremy. Now, let's see, who else is on this list? Okay, Aryan. I do remember getting closer with Aryan also during 8th grade because we had PE together. And we had PE together in 8th grade with a really good majority of our friend group. So we, pretty much every sports, we were on the same team when we could help it. And whenever we had free time, we would either go play football or keep away with each other. And I remember one time, Alex stepped on Aryan's glasses. And obviously that's not like a fun thing. But I don't know why, that's one of my earlier memories of him. I already got to my first memory of Aryan and how I think we met. But yeah, Aryan and I got closer, same thing as Jeremy, progressively as time went on, as most things do. Let's see. I forgot to mention someone from that reading and writing class. It was not just Ben and Dre, it was in fact Matthew as well. This is an interesting one because as far as I know, none of us had contact with Matthew in elementary school. I should ask him again because I'm really unclear on the timeline of Matthew's life in general. Matthew also moved here from another country like Vince and Eli did. But it was significantly later than both of them, I know that. But I want to say that he did not go to an American school until 6th grade. I could be wrong. He might have gone to an elementary school while he was here. But I don't believe so. Anyway, Matthew was in that reading and writing class with Ben and I. And I don't remember exactly our first interaction. But I do remember at the point where our reading and writing teacher was really like into making us be friends, like getting us comfortable with each other, which is what a lot of English teachers ended up being, for good reason, but we just didn't understand it back then. So she would have one person every day be the designated handshaker when we got back from lunch, because like I said, the lunch was in the middle of these classes, so when we got back, we would line up, and then someone would shake everyone's hand and say, "Oh, good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon," as we walked inside. But Matthew, when he got chosen, decided to do a normal handshake for anyone else until Ben and I got to the front, where he would grab our hand, and then continue to use as much force as he possibly could to swing our arm up and then rip it down as hard as he could, to the point where there were times where he was getting down in a squat to go boom, like get as much downward force as he could to try and hurt our shoulders. And he did shit like that all the time. Like, there was no avoiding it. He also did this thing in line where he would be lined up behind me and say, "Hey, you want to know what a backbreaker is?" And I say, "No, that sounds awful." And then he just grabs my shoulders and jabs his knee into my back anyway, as if I didn't know what was gonna fucking happen. But obviously Matthew and I knew each other before that, because I don't think he would have done that to a mostly stranger, right? But those are some of my first clear memories of Matthew. Another one that is really weird in my head that kind of summarizes Matthew's attitude towards school is Matthew and I got partnered up for a spelling project or something where we had to fill in the words and write sentences with words that were like somewhat new to us, right? And we were writing sentences for him, and we got stuck on one with the word dragon in it. I don't know why I remember that. That wasn't even like the key word of the sentence. I just remember it having that. That has no point to do with the story, but we were writing it. Looking back, this was probably one of our earliest interactions, maybe our first, I doubt it, but it could be. We were writing down the sentence, and we write something down that's kind of half-assed, like it doesn't really make sense. And I look at it, and I look back at Matthew like, is that good? And he says, I don't know if it's good, but is it good enough? And I nod and kind of, I guess it is. And then we turned it in, and we got an A. And then, like, looking back on anything I've ever worked on with Matthew, yeah, that's kind of how it went down. But, again, I don't really remember Matthew at the picnic tables. As far as I know, he went to the tree group, and then we eventually mixed later. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think I am. Now, speaking of the tree group, thankfully, I talked to Mateo until 2:30 in the morning the other night, as I said earlier. He gave me a lot of insight on how that group started. He said that he was sitting at the tree group. He was the first one, and for a while he was alone, which in hindsight makes a lot of sense, because I feel like if everyone that we knew outside of Dylan, Eli, Ari, and Vince and Noah was over there, we would have gone over there a lot earlier than we did. But we didn't even think about going over there for a while. So what Mateo tells me is he was sitting there alone for a long time. He said a long time, but I don't know how long it actually was. And then, I'm not sure how this happened. Maybe you guys can give me some insight with people like Ben, Alex, Matthew, and maybe even some others that we hung around with in middle school just started gravitating towards that area, and we would just hang out with them. And then eventually, I think Eli was probably Ari and Jean-Pierre were the first ones to go over to the tree from the picnic tables. That happened super, super early. And then, after that, Eli started going over there after lunch sometimes, and we would pass them on our way to go play tag. And we would ask, hey, you want to go play tag? Actually, hang on, that had to be super early, because, Alex was playing tag with us early, and so were they. Okay, again, the timeline's fuzzy because it was 7 or 8 years ago, obviously. But somewhere down the line, we decided, let's just eat lunch also at the square, at the tree. And we started hanging around the tree in the morning, which was the more memorable thing, right? So yeah, that's kind of how that happened, is we eventually just kind of all fell in with the tree. That's how we all met, that's how we all got closer. That's where new members got introduced, people like Jonah, people like, Jonah, Adam, Dincel when he came back. I remember that being a big thing. But yeah, Noah was there. Everyone kind of gravitated towards this tree at some point. Even Jessica and Alexis at certain points, who were two people that none of us really, really knew in elementary school and middle school, but we knew who they were. But eventually, we all just kind of gravitated together. And luckily, we all clicked. There are some people who I'm still unclear about how we got together in the first place. People like Dane, specifically. I don't remember. I remember him being at the tree during mid to late 8th grade. I don't remember how he got there. I don't remember who brought him in, if anyone, or if he just came one day. I don't remember my first interaction with him really at all. But you know, looking back on this, it was kind of shocking because this is something that Mateo and I talked about a lot in our many hours of talking the other night, is how did we all come together? How did this happen? Because something like this doesn't just happen, you know? Everyone has a connection to someone. Like, I'm pretty sure that I brought Noah in. I was at least partially responsible for bringing Ben in, maybe Matthew. You know, Dylan brought me, Vince, and Eli together. Apparently Eli and Jean-Pierre knew each other to where Eli knew Arian, and then Jean-Pierre and Arian eventually probably were the bridge to the tree group. So, you know, there's all these ties and all these lines. Alex probably brought Jeremy in. Vince brought some dude in at some point, this guy named Eric, who, as far as I know, some of us don't even fucking remember him. I remember him really vividly. I remember, like, at one point, there was like a week or two where I was like, damn, this dude might be my best friend in the world right now. Which, he's a completely different story that I will talk about in another middle school video because there's a lot that goes on there. But yeah, we all brought people in and we all brought each other together in a really weird way. And fuck, I hope my camera's recording because I've been paranoid about this the whole time because I can't actually see the screen anymore, but yeah. I think I did that overall message with the last one. Do I have any more names on here actually before I do that? Mac is another one that I think he was just kind of gravitated towards the tree. I don't remember my first interaction with him, but I remember him being there a lot at the tree towards the later parts of 6th, 7th, and obviously 8th grade. And in high school, we grew even more with other people who we didn't go to middle school with. But the core remained the same for a long time. You know, there were people we hung out with more, people like Jacob, Sebastian, they would come in and out, and same thing in high school, we hung around the same area every morning. But I think with the attraction in middle school is it's the formational memory, you know, it's how what we think of as our friend group right now, it's how we came together. What I just said is, everything I've just said is the extent of my knowledge in how that all went down. Maybe you think that's a lot, maybe you think it's a little, but at the end of the day, there's a really good chance that we just walked up to Mateo, Alex, Mac, and whoever was hanging out at the tree at the time and said, hey, you want to go play tag? And then look at what has sprouted since that. I've been playing Dungeons & Dragons in a group with Alex for months now. Maybe that wouldn't have happened if we didn't ask him to play tag. You know, I was talking to Mateo till 2:30 in the morning. We've been on so many sports teams together. You know, maybe that wouldn't have happened if we didn't ask him to play tag. It's just so much situational stuff that it's really cool to look at, to me, in my opinion, that all of that came together and it was by pure random chance. Because I know personally, if I didn't choose to like talk to Dylan after he beat me in backstroke, no chance in the world would he have introduced me to Vince and Eli. No chance in the world would I have had half the friends I had now. Like that, it's all these little choices that we make that we don't really notice until we think about it, right? They come together. I don't know. I just don't know. We can't explain how it happens because we make one little choice. Like Alex said, he met Jeremy at Outdoor Ed. If Alex and Jeremy didn't choose to have a conversation during Outdoor Ed, they would have never been friends. Maybe Jeremy never comes into our group. Jean-Pierre was showing Eli around, or Arian was showing Eli around his elementary school when he moved here. If the school or the teacher had asked anyone else to do that, maybe Eli becomes friends with them and moves in with their group instead of ours. Things aren't necessarily destined to happen, but it's really easy to think that they are. Especially when you're talking about a friend group like this. I do have one more name, I want to mention him really quick, Sid. This is actually a really good example of that, and I'm glad I'm saying this now. My very, very first memory of Sid. We were in that reading and writing class, and he was walking by the door. He had a slip in his hand that meant he got to go home early. And the teacher, Miss Pinella, looks out the door and says, "Oh, goodbye, Sid." And I had seen him walking around. He used to wear a Pokemon hat, so he was pretty, distinct. So I was like, oh, that's Sid. That's his name, okay. And I know that there's a whole thing, people used to confuse Sid and Eli. I don't know if that happened in 6th grade or if that happened later. I don't know when that started. I don't know how that started, but clearly those two got connected somehow. But I remember in Outdoor Ed, I remember this very, very vividly. It was the last day. We were waiting in the big dining hall to get on the bus to go home. It was raining, raining pretty damn hard. We're in the middle of the woods in this big valley. So I'm sure you can construct the vibe from that. It's gloomy, it's rainy, there's giant trees and hills and mountains everywhere around us. We all have our backpacks and our luggage there. And I'm sick as fuck, by the way. Like, I caught a really, really bad cold at the end of Outdoor Ed. To the point where when people were going on hikes and stuff, one of my leaders would sit, or I don't know why I remember this, but they sent me to go sleep in the teacher's cabin one time because I was not well enough to go on a hike. So I remember waking up and looking over at the bed. It was a room with 2 bunk beds. I remember waking up, seeing my fucking science and history teacher, Mr. Jennett, sleeping in the bed next to me, and thought, this is a little fucking weird. So I kind of wander out into the main lounge where Miss Pinella's there. She's the only one there. And she's like, oh, are you okay? She was a super sweet person, right? So she sat me down and made me tea and just talked to me for a while until the group got back. It was really weird, but I don't know why I remember that too, but I was sick as fuck. My last name starts with a V, right? So they're calling people by last name. I'm alone at this table because everyone else has been called. And Sid sits down next to me. He's like, oh hey, your name's Joey, right? I'm like, yeah, you're Sid. He's like, yeah, you have fun? And then we just talked for a couple minutes, and then they called his name, which at the time, I think the last name he went by started with an R, so he was relatively late. So they called him, and he went. And that's my earliest memory of really interacting with Sid. And I think that really hammers home what I'm trying to say. He did not have to sit down next to me. He was standing up perfectly fine where he was early. He did not have to come sit down next to me and talk to me. Especially he probably knew I was sick because even if no one told him, I looked like shit. When you have a cold really bad, you don't sleep well, you just don't look good. I looked sick as fuck. Let's not forget that. So he sits down next to me, one way or another, knowing that I'm sneezing my brains out every 5 seconds. And he just talks to me for a little bit. If he wouldn't have done that, we would not have been as close as we are today. I guarantee that. Obviously, we were not the bridge to each other in our group. Sid and Eli clearly knew Sid in some way. Sid was at the tree when we started hanging out there. Some way, somehow, it happened. But I think that moment represents what I'm trying to say you never know what's gonna happen, dude. You don't. You can walk into middle school thinking, oh, I'm gonna make friends. It's just a thing that happens. Which, yeah, in a way, but you can't just sit around and expect things to happen. Yeah, I mean, maybe that's what happened to Mateo. I need to ask him more about how that worked out, but even then, he had to do something. We asked him to play tag at one point. I know that for a fact. He could have said no and just kept sitting there. But he didn't. He actively chose to say yes, get up, and come play tag with people who he had never met before. Which, if he didn't do that, maybe we're not as close as we are. I'm pretty sure I said that 10 minutes ago, but that's besides the point at this point. What I'm trying to say as the finisher of all this, it's a really fun thing to look back on how groups like that formed. It's really interesting, at least to me personally, that we've called ourselves an empire or a kingdom or whatever the hell, but that's kind of what we are. It's just a period of time where we're super tight with each other, and this is our people, this is who we are, this is our group, this is who we want to be around, this is us. That was never going to be formed unless at least a few of us actively tried to do it. But it's not like you're actively scouting for people and picking them out to be in your group. There were some people who we were never going to be friends with. As much as we maybe wanted to, or there were some people where it was just never going to happen. And honestly, I think we did a pretty good job. I think everybody everyone that we have in our group has worked out really, really well for a long period of time. Some people have left, sure, but that's not to say that they didn't have a good time when they were here, right? I think like the overall thing I'm trying to get at is the thing we have right now, the thing we've had for bordering on 8 years now. If we started 8th grade in 2015, that means we started 7th and 14, that means we started 6th and 13. It's 2021. This August, it will have marked 8 years since we started middle school, which is what a lot of us consider to be the start of our formation. 8 years. It's been 7.5 years since everything happened. This thing that we've had for 7.5 years. There are countries with shorter lifespans than our friend group. That's wild. But that wasn't made in an instant. We all kind of remember it as, oh yeah, you know, we've been friends for so long that it seems like we've just been friends the whole time we've existed with each other. But that's not true. I remember the first day of middle school walking around, I didn't know where Dylan was, and he was the only person I knew. I remember just wandering around, like waiting outside the door for my first class to start. That never happened again. Because of you guys. You know, like, if we didn't actively try to go out and become a part of something, because all of us had to do something to get, it's not like an initiation, but it's like, we had to actively either accept an invite or actively go hang out with people to make this happen. Maybe there were some people that wanted to, or maybe there were some people that tried, and they just didn't mesh. We're never gonna remember that. You know, it's a really weird thing that all of this happens at once, but at the same time, it takes years. Like I said, apparently Jeremy wasn't even close to being assimilated into our group until the end of 6th grade. Even if that's true, I didn't get close to him until 8th grade. Same thing with Ariane. I remember Eli and I, we knew each other for 6th grade, but we weren't that close in 6th grade. We were part of each other's main circles, sure, but I remember the moment that Eli and I started to get close was 7th grade, the first day of 7th grade. We had 4th and 5th period together. There's no lunch between this time because they changed lunch after that, but we had history, 4th period, and we had science 5th period. And we would walk on this little road that's kind of at the very side of the school, right by the fence. We were always the only two on that road when we did it. We were just talking, and that is what kind of got us close, is that 3 minutes a day. We would just talk about whatever, and then we were the only two people we really knew in that next class. So we started getting close around 7th grade because of that, really. And yeah. I've been filming this for a while now, at least hopefully filming. If this isn't recording right now, then I swear to God, I'm not remaking this because I've been talking for an hour, I'm sure. But, yeah. We can't take this for granted, dude. These relationships we formed, look how long it took. You're gonna tell me that, this is not an easy thing to do, and it wasn't easy for us to do. It seems easy now, I'm sure, but I guarantee you there was at least one day or one moment where everyone whose name I just said was feeling like they didn't have any friends at this school. That's just how it was. We don't remember that because now we see that, okay, those 1 or 2 days, maybe longer for some people, are still an absolutely tiny fraction of time compared to the days where we've just been endlessly laughing because we have had our friends around, you know? I don't know why. I just woke up feeling really nostalgic and felt like this was a good thing to talk about for that. Hopefully I get the 8th grade video up this weekend. I'm gonna try and film it on Saturday. And I didn't have to pause the video this time. Let's go. It'll be way easier to upload. Okay. But yeah. Forming what we have formed is not easy. And we have to appreciate that. think that's all.